Hello, 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 my little devil darlings. This is Penny, the angelic sweetheart here, and welcome to an episode of the returning series called Frightful Fridays. And yes, I know it's been so long. I didn't have the right programs or the right equipment to do this series, but I do now. So yeah, this isn't brand new. This is a returning series. So yeah, without further ado, let us go ahead and react to some scary videos, shall we? Alright, the first video that we're going to be reacting to this Frightful Friday is called The Weird Man in the Metro, and this video was uploaded by WANSEE Entertainment. Go subscribe to them. They make awesome horror animations, and all credit goes to them. So, without further ado, let us go ahead and watch this, shall we?
It happened when I was in 6th grade. I was on my way home by subway with my mom, and a man with a paper bag was standing in front of us. He kept staring at me and feeling burdened. I tried to ignore him by borrowing my mom's cell phone and watching YouTube. However, the man suddenly said,
"She looks a lot like my daughter."
I was surprised at first, but quickly relieved of my alertness since it seemed he has no dangerous intention. Mom replied, "Oh, thank you," and tried to stop talking to him, but he continued.
"My daughter is pretty too. She seems to be about the same age as my daughter, and you must be having a hard time taking the subway so late at night."
Then he handed us a paper bag he was holding and said,
"I baked some bread today. Give it to your daughter."
She refused many times, but he kept saying,
"You know, lots of the children are usually hungry at this time.
or,
This is a really delicious one."
it's hard to ignore him when he's been recommending it not once or twice. So we were forced to take a paper bag and put it on my lap and waited to get to the next station we could get off. After a while, he talked to me again.
"Why aren't you eating?"
I didn't know what to do, so I said, "Oh, I just ate a lot, so I'm not hungry yet. I'll eat later." Then he asked me once again.
"I said, why aren't you eating?"
His facial expression was stiff and bizarre, so I still remember that moment vividly. I apologized politely and asked him inversely this time, "Why do you give me this bread instead of your daughter?" Then he replied,
"Oh, because I can't see my daughter anymore."
My mom, who was getting anxious, watched me quietly from the side and dragged me. "Sweetie, we're getting off soon, so we have to stand by the door." She took me to the closed door, and for 10 minutes before getting off, he kept looking at me. Just before we arrived at the station, he came to us and told like this,
"I gave you this. Why didn't you eat? Why? Why?"
We couldn't make a
He's
fuss while we were
crazy.
still in the subway, so we waited desperately to arrive at the station as soon as possible. Fortunately, we arrived at the station shortly after, and at that very moment, we left the subway as if we were running away. I thought about eating bread on our way home because of his favor. However, I was also a little suspicious that he tried to force me to eat it. So I ended up throwing it away eventually.
Hold on.
The more I thought about it, the more creepy it was.
She made the right choice by throwing that away and not eating it, because yeah, I mean, I was suspicious. That's why you don't take things from people you don't know. Those of you that are watching that are pretty young and that probably either don't know this or already know this already, I'm gonna say it again. Do not take things from strangers. Well, actually, don't receive or... Really? Why can't I say it? I'm sorry. Just... If a stranger gives you something, please refuse it. Just don't take it. Alright. Next scary video. Okay, the second video that we are going to be watching this new episode is called The Hide and Seek at the Wig Factory. Okay? And this video was also uploaded by WANSEE Entertainment themselves. And let's just watch it. Like, I haven't watched it yet, so let's go ahead and... Okay, stop talking, Penny. Play it.
It happened when I was 7 years old. There was a small wig factory in my neighborhood, and lots of hair was always rolling around in front of the factory. I could see lots of men and women busily carrying boxes into the car. In addition, mannequin heads were scattered around the factory, so I sometimes played with them, kicking like a soccer ball. However, at some point, the people who were busy working at the wig factory were not seen, and there were many days when the shutters were always closed. One day when I was walking by the factory with my mom, she looked at the closed factory and said, "They said wigs don't sell very well these days. I guess they're going to close the factory." A few days later, I was playing hide and seek with my friends in the neighborhood until dinner time. It was a long winter day, so it was already dark, and I, who was a tagger, couldn't find one of my friends. When I finally gave up, he showed up and said he was hiding in the wig factory. "How did you get in when the shutters were closed?" "When you go to the back of the door, there's a pile of boxes on the wall, and you could step on them and go in through the window. There was a shelf under the window, so you could step on it and come back out." I thought it was a good idea. And as soon as the next tagger was decided, I ran to the factory with one friend.
Bad idea.
It was very easy to step on the box and go inside, as he said. The moonlight came through the window so we could see inside the factory. Mannequin heads with wigs on them were lined on the shelves. Since they were all looking at the wall, we could only see the back of the mannequin's head. Now that I think about it, I would have been chilled to see all the black hairs. But it would have been no big deal for a 7-year-old who was just distracted by hide and seek. So me and my friend waited for the tagger, giggling with each other. But there was no sign of him when time went by. We eventually came out of the window again and decided to play one last game before going to dinner. I became a tagger again this time. After counting 10, I went around looking for my friends, and finally, the last 2 were left. I grinned and headed straight to the wig factory and shouted as I pushed my face through the window, "I won't be fooled twice. I know you're there, so get out of there." I went to the window to find friends who didn't answer. And then I felt something different from before. One of the heads of the mannequins, which were all looking at the wall, was looking at me. The moment I made eye contact with it, I felt like my whole body was electrocuted, and my heart dropped because the mannequin had a torso, unlike other mannequins. I was so surprised that I started screaming and crying, but no one came to see me, as if they didn't hear me. The mannequin was constantly shaking from side to side or moving little by little, spinning in place. When I came to my senses, I took the courage to come closer to it, and I could see its face was very pale and the eyes were unfocused. It was an old man. He was hanging from the ceiling on the pillar next to the shelf, and his face and his body were facing me as the rope turned. Being surprised, I immediately left the window and ran home crying. I told my parents all the truth as soon as I arrived, and they also reported to the police immediately, feeling serious. My dad, who went to the factory, kept comforting me in case I was terrified and shocked. However, I ended up suffering from what happened that day as a nightmare for a fairly long time. Later, according to the conversation of the elders in the neighborhood, the wig factory was suffering from financial difficulties, and the owner of the factory, who was in debt because of it, eventually closed the factory that day and hung himself.
My
And a suicide note was also found nearby. The corpse I saw for the first time in my immature days gave me a mental trauma. And after that, I could no longer watch the scene that people hang themselves in movies or dramas, even now.
Wow. I don't blame him. Not even one bit. I mean, if I was, like, around his age, I'd be scarred for life, too, seeing something like that. I can only imagine how he must have felt being so young, seeing that horrific scene in front of him. But yeah. Anyway, next video. Alright, the next video that we are going to be reviewing this week, well, watching, you guys know what I mean, this week, is My Friend Disappeared from the Deep Web, and this was uploaded by WANSEE Entertainment. Also, yes, we're going to be watching a lot of WANSEE Entertainment vids, because, yeah, one, I need to catch up to them, and anyway, all credit goes to them. Now let's go ahead and watch the video.
This animation is sponsored by Atlas VPN. Atlas VPN is a tool that encrypts your data and hides your virtual location. Atlas VPN is supported on all devices and is the affordable VPN service. Atlas VPN Data Breach Monitor feature works by inserting your email address to scan the internet and provide reminders to prevent hacking before your sensitive data gets hacked. In addition, if you have a local restriction on Netflix, then you can use VPN to remove it. If you want to enjoy the other Netflix countries' content, you can just access its libraries. Currently, Atlas VPN is running a huge discount on their 3-year deal for just...
Okay, I'm sorry. I tried. But I'm here for the scary animations, not for the sponsors. Sorry guys, let's go ahead and do this.
It's about when I was 21. I had a friend named Steven. He was very nice, but had a really bad complex on his face. He had serious skin problems, and it was hard to meet people. Another friend around him always made fun of his face. So from some point on, he didn't go out of the house because he became a social misfit. He has always been stuck at home, like a ghost. I was his only friend. One day, when I went to his house to see him, I could see that he was getting darker and worse. All kinds of caffeine drinks were piled up on his desk, and his appearance was getting worse. There's something he's into these days, and it's the deep web. I think he enjoyed watching all the stimulating things on the deep web and feeling out of touch with the world. In the deep web's world, you could see the things which don't happen in the real world. I feel like he wanted to escape reality like that. Worried, I told him to quit, but he didn't listen. One day, while I was playing at his house, he found some kind of terrible site on the deep web. And I could see lots of pictures of many people's skins and bones being separated. I was disgusted right away, but my friend Steven started to feel interest in. Is this all real? I told him to stop watching, but he kept digging the site. Start your new life. We'll make you have a new face. It was written in red letters like this. I think it was talking about taking off the skin of someone else's face and transplanting it. So it's kind of illegal plastic surgery. Does this make any sense? It's nonsense. I'm sure it's a fake site that someone just made to make fun of others. However, Steven sent an email there, and a few days later, he disappeared.
Sending an email? Really? And yeah, I also stopped at the part where he said he disappeared, but, you know, I'll share my thoughts after it. The video's almost over.
And he still hasn't shown up so far. No one has ever seen him, including his family. But you know what? When I looked out the window from my house sometimes, there was a man looking at my house from afar. He was very handsome. He would look at my house for a while as if he were thinking about something, and then disappeared. At first, I thought he was just confused about the address, or had something to do around here. One day, something came to my memory suddenly. Was that Steven? Maybe he showed up with his new face and came to see me. Of course, I still miss him, And I do believe he's alive, somewhere.
Okay, that didn't end up with somebody getting killed, but really, stay off the deep web. Really, you why do people do that? It's so stupid. Just stay off of it, and it's just not worth it. So anyway, next video. Okay, the last video for this brand new returning series episode, Frightful Fridays, is called... Did I say... I'm sorry, my mind is like everywhere today. But anyway, this last video we're going to see this week is 2 True Horror Stories Animated, also uploaded by WANSEE Entertainment, and all credit goes to them, so don't steal their videos. Anyway, let's go ahead and watch the video. Saw the people.
I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. My family moved up there when I was about 6 months old. I was originally born in a small town called Mount Clemens. It's the same town that Dean Cain from The Adventures of Lewis and Clark was born in.
Really?
I suppose that's my biggest claim to fame. Michigan is quite a unique state, the way it's positioned on the northern border of the US and the southern border of Canada. Those of us that are born in Michigan usually stay here, and no one ever travels to my neck of the woods. There's no real way to just pass by, and we're landlocked by the Great Lakes, if that makes sense. With the exception of the large cities, the state is mostly covered by woodlands. I have a few strange experiences living in the Upper Peninsula, but none stranger than the one I'm about to tell. We lived on top of a hill, about a 30-minute drive to the nearest town. Our next-door neighbors were a good 10 miles away. It was quiet. Few, if any, vehicles ever came by the house. I developed a strange fear of vehicles coming up the hill. It seemed like you could hear them for miles. I mean, of course, there were others who lived on our road, but this wasn't a place for outsiders to take shortcuts. We didn't even have names for our roads. They were all designated by numbers.
That's weird.
When I got older, I wasn't too excited or afraid when vehicles would pass by. During the day, I knew most of the cars and trucks that our distant neighbors drove. When night came, well, that was a different story. I could see the headlights cutting through my bedroom window and light up my walls like some kind of ominous paint. It's a hard feeling to describe, but in my young mind, I felt that no one had any business driving down such a remote road at any point after dark. At the time, I was about 13. The year was 1996. Our family, amazingly, had just acquired internet. Anyone that's in their mid to late 30s knows how insane this time was. For whatever reason, at this time, my dad installed a glass sliding door on the wall near where the computer was. The computer used to be the hub of our home at the time, unlike nowadays where every family member has their own computer, plus a billion other gadgets in their pocket. So having the sliding door open up to the scenery of the countryside from the computer desk was actually pretty nice. I appreciated it for about 2 days, before one of the strangest things I've ever seen occurred. I was up late on a Saturday night on the computer, like usual. In those days, I was probably messing around in the Yahoo chat rooms, or maybe playing Myst. Then I heard it. I mostly felt it at first, the low rumbling of a truck engine, creeping slowly down the main road. The truck passed by our house, and then stopped. The long-forgotten fear I mentioned earlier came roaring back like a freight train. Nothing good would come from a suspicious truck driving down our road at 1 o'clock in the morning. What I saw next has burned itself inside my head. I can still recall it as clear as day. The truck screeched to a stop. A man flung open the passenger side door and quickly hustled over to the driver's side. This was all taking place too far away for me to give a really good physical description, but I could tell the passenger was much larger than the driver. He wore some kind of puffy vest, jeans, and one of those trucker-style caps. He grabbed the driver and dragged him out of the truck, then slammed him against the tailgate. He seemed to be shouting orders at the driver. motioning him to open the tailgate. When he did, I saw the driver turn to the bigger guy, as if he was hesitating out of fear. Even at a distance, I could see this clearly. The driver was unnerved, and his partner forcefully handed him a shovel. The passenger then pointed to a spot on the side of the road behind the truck. The panicked driver began to frantically dig where the passenger had pointed to. He dug for about 3 to 4 minutes, paused, then looked at the driver, and the two exchanged some words that I couldn't quite make out. The passenger then dragged something out of the bed of the truck. I can only describe it as a closed sleeping bag, with a body still inside. The passenger walked over to the shallow grave and tossed it in. The two men then made a poor attempt of covering the hole before they sped off. You may be asking, well, did you go out and see what they buried? And the answer is surely what you would expect. Of course I did. And that's the creepiest part of all. When I went out to the road the next morning, the hole was empty. I knew what I saw. There was even the tire tracks from the night before. But whatever they threw into that hole was gone. I looked to the opposite side of the burial and was horrified to see footprints in the dirt leading straight into the forest. I had no idea what to make of it. I've repressed this memory for so long and just wanted to pretend that it never happened. Aside from a few close friends, I've never told anyone about this. I believe that bag they threw into the ground had someone in it, and they thought that person was dead. However, based on what I saw the next morning, they were wrong. You can chalk this all up to teenage imagination if you like, but I stand by what I say. There are some things in this world that you'll never be able to explain, and even if you could, chances are you wouldn't care much for the answer.
That is creepy. Okay.
This happened 7 years ago. I was a freshman in middle school at that time, and I was interested in graphics, so I was attending an academy to learn 3D Max. The academy lasted 4 hours every weekend, but anyway, I really didn't want to go that day. The reason was that I just felt bored. So I decided not to attend the academy that day, but I had no money. So I sat at the bus stop playing cell phone games for 30 minutes. Feeling bored, I ended up heading in front of my house, praying for my father not to be there. And then I thought of an idea. Maybe I could just ring the doorbell to find out. This is a method of verification that I'm still using well. However, there was only one small problem. I had to hide well so that I wouldn't be caught because my dad shouldn't see me when he came out. It's impossible to run and hide because the hallway is wide. Fortunately, my house is on the first floor, so I could jump over to the parking lot right in front of me to hide. Anyway, I pressed the doorbell after deciding my mind, but there was no response from inside my house. I couldn't judge immediately, since he usually slept in the room during the daytime on weekends. So I pressed it 3 more times and a little relieved that no one came out. I was sure that no one was at home. However, I was more careful because I felt guilty for no reason when I did any bad thing. He might pretend he's not home knowing I'm the one pressing the button. I went back to the apartment, checking the balcony of the apartment, and even asked the security office. But my doubts didn't go away. In the end, there was only one way left: to call home. Fortunately, our phone didn't show the phone number at the time. So I decided to make a phone call. Just as I tried to put the phone down after hearing 5 times of phone signals, someone answered the phone. I was so surprised that I hung up right away. However, I called one more time because it was too cold outside, and I wanted to play on a computer at my cozy home. Again, someone answered the phone, and this time I could hear a breathing sound over the phone. I thought it was the sound of my dad's breath because I remembered he caught a cold at that time. And I could not stay out any longer. So I ended up entering the apartment with a ridiculous excuse that the academy ended early. However, I couldn't sense any presence of people as soon as I came inside. "Dad? You not here?" I was glad that I wasn't scolded, but first of all, I checked some stuff, just in case. How dry the toilet water is, how warm the TV setup box is, or how warm the bed is, etc. And it was concluded that there was no one at home for about 3 hours. In the midst of joy about his absence, I suddenly felt chilled and got goosebumps. Then, who answered the phone earlier?
Exactly.
Feeling terrified, I looked carefully around the house, but there was no one. And my parents, who were out, soon returned, and I forgot about it a few moments later. But now that I think about it, I think maybe there's an intruder inside the house. He might have been hiding somewhere in the house, and he probably sneaked out while I was in the bathroom. If I had encountered him at that time, I might not have been writing this now.
That was creepy. Like, yeah, who was in that house if it wasn't his parents? Well, interesting. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this new episode of my now returning series, Frightful Fridays. I missed doing it so much, but things have been happening and so on, and you know. But if you guys would like me to actually really continue this series and keep reacting to scary videos of my choosing, or videos you send me, let me know in the comments below. Follow my Instagram, Twitter, and DeviantArt, and I will see you all next time. Stay creative!